So when it comes to using Microsoft Loop, there's been a question that keeps coming up. How is this going to work with also Microsoft OneNote? Because Microsoft have also announced that it's going to integrate Microsoft Loop capabilities inside of OneNote, which is fantastic. But Microsoft OneNote is also 20 years old. It was released back in 2003, and Microsoft Loop has only just went into general availability. That means that Microsoft Loop does have some more advanced capabilities to give it more power when it comes to taking notes and sharing them across all the Microsoft 365 apps. But that still raises the question, can we then use Microsoft Loop as an app to take your notes that may even complement or replace your use of Microsoft OneNote? Now before we dive in, I'd love it if you hit the like button. Not only that, subscribe to his channel to find more great content like this. They'll turn you into a productivity superstar. Anyway, let's dive into Microsoft Loop and check out how it can transform the way that you take notes. So when it comes to using Microsoft Loop, much like OneNote, you're going to want to have quick access to all of your notes. The best way to do that is to use the latest Windows app. Yes, Loop is available in an app. All we need to do is go into the Windows Store. And when you're in there, search for Microsoft Loop, and here you'll find the Loop app you can install on your Windows device. When you're ready, click on the Get button and now install it on your computer. And once you've added the app from the Windows Store, well, we can quickly add some shortcuts. Here we can pin it to the taskbar, pin to start, and auto start on device login. And now the app is on your Windows device. It's going to auto sign in and start as soon as you start Windows, meaning all of your Loop content is now available pretty quickly and there's no need to go via the web browser. But when it comes to taking notes, much like we see here inside of OneNote, you want the ability to be able to create different sections, right? That's what typically we find in OneNote. When we fire at OneNote, we'll find a quick notes section on the left alongside any sections you've created, typically for projects or initiatives that you're working on. But how can we do that inside of Microsoft Loop to provide similar capability? Well, let's head down into that Loop app. When you're in there, we can now consider how best to achieve this. Now you may want to start out with just some ideas. By clicking on the Ideas button and then the plus icon to the right hand side, you can begin to create your first ideas page. That acts much like a page inside of one of your OneNotes. But the problem I generally find is this doesn't organize the content pretty well. After a while, if we go back to our Ideas tab, you'll start to fill up with different pages with a different and sometimes complicated naming convention, making it really hard to go back to your ideas. So think of Loop much like OneNote. Let's go back to the Loop home page, and from here, instead of going to the ideas, we're going to go click on the plus icon and we're going to create ourselves a new Loop workspace to operate one of your projects or initiatives. Now with that done, to mirror what we have inside of OneNote, we can go ahead and click on Create. And once we've done that, you can see that Project Zeta has now been created, but no one has access to it. Much like OneNote, you don't need to provide access to anyone inside of your Loop workspace. It can just stay for now as only you having access. Later on, you can share it with your project team, but in Loop, it doesn't mean everything needs to be shared with colleagues. Things in Loop can remain personal and private to you, much like my Project Zeta workspace is right now. So looking back at our OneNote, inside of our Project Zeta, we had a page here all around scoping and design. And we had some content with text, and we also had a checklist of activities that needed to get done. So can Loop provide the same capability? Well, yes, it can. In fact, what I'm going to go ahead and do is copy this text content from our scoping and design page, head back into the Loop app, and now let's give this page a name, exactly the same, Project Scope and Design. And now we can also begin typing. Now you can also see in Loop, we can use the menu button to open additional components, which are all very powerful in their own right. But we're only dealing with text right now. So what we can actually do is remove the menu button and instead paste in that content. And as simple as that, we've now got content. We can also, much like OneNote, go and add headings in formatting to make the content more well understood later when it comes to adding things like table of contents. But how can Loop deal with checklists? So if we go back into our OneNote page, we've got a whole checklist. And as we can see, we can easily check them off inside of OneNote. Well, we can do much the same. In fact, let's go and copy over one of these checklists here and bring it straight into Microsoft Loop. Here, what I can firstly do is add a header because we want to show, especially this is all related to a project checklist. So we'll do exactly that. And here we can now highlight the content and make it a H2 in formatting. It's really important for later when we look again at table of contents. With that done, we can then go further down, click on the / key to open up our menu button and select checklist and paste in one of our items for the checklist. And much like OneNote, we can check and uncheck when this checklist has been completed. It's very straightforward to do inside of Microsoft Loop. And not forgetting planning, right? In our OneNote, we've got a page dedicated to exactly that, including a few tasks. But the problem I have with OneNote is I've created them and I've also flagged them inside of Outlook to be marked as Outlook tasks for me to pick up later, but I can't easily assign it to other people. So how can we mirror this capability and actually do better inside of Loop? Well, once again, we can go ahead and take our content. Let's just take this first point of one of my tasks to get done. Let's go back into Loop. And at this point, let's create a page all around planning. So let's click on the plus icon, create a new page, and here we consider planning. So we give it a title right at the top. Now in our plan, we're going to allocate tasks and get stuff done. We could equally do a checklist as we've seen previously, but instead let's go and create some tasks. Now to do that, once again, we're going to click on the / key to open the menu options. And here I'm going to scroll down and we're looking at this point for a task list. We're going to click that icon here. We can now see we can add in tasks, assign them to others and set due dates. So here's one of my tasks here. But unlike OneNote, what I can now do is add it to one of my colleagues. So yes, my Project Zeta workspace isn't shared with anyone else but myself. What I do though is share one of my tasks with my colleagues. So I'm going to allocate this task to Megan and I'm going to also select a due date for next week. Now as you can see, Megan doesn't have access. This plus icon denotes that she doesn't have access or visibility to this task. What I can do is click on the plus icon and I can now click share and notify. And at which point this task will now be notified to Megan and appear in Megan's Microsoft to-do list. And it's powered by Microsoft Planner. This doesn't mean that Megan can see all content inside of this workspace though. Instead, Megan can only see the tasks in a task list that have been noted on this page. The other content is not visible to Megan. So it's a great way to allocate tasks to others, much like you did in OneNote, but to also place assignments and notifications using the power of Microsoft To Do and Planner. So if you're feeling a bit looped out, let's take a breath and take a short break, because I'd love to tell you more about Your 365 Coach. Your 365 Coach was developed to give you the skills that you need to become a productivity superstar in the workplace. Yes, whether you need consulting support or bringing us in to help you in Microsoft 365 or additional training, we're there to help you. If you'd like to find out more, check out our website in the link below. Not only that, on our website there's the ability to download a free Microsoft 365 ebook that goes into more detail about how you become more productive with the tools you already have. Otherwise, let's dive back into Microsoft Loop and OneNote and find out how we can continue to improve the way that you take notes. But also in OneNote, you generally may find you want to have it as a scratch pad for ideas. Here's one of our YouTube videos that we wanted to refer to for some of the content we're creating. And what we can easily do in OneNote is paste in a link, click on play, and we can play the content in place inside of OneNote. It's quite powerful to do. But we can also do that in Microsoft Loop. Yes, new capability recently released allows integration with YouTube and Microsoft Stream videos when you just have that web link. So let's head into our Loop app once again. This point, I'm going to go ahead and create a new page and call it Content Ideas. So now I added a title and a little bit of an idea here of what we're discussing. I'm now going to paste in that web link. You can easily see now that the YouTube video has been integrated directly within this page. I can click on play and play the video directly inside of the Loop page. Really powerful to share ideas from YouTube and Microsoft Stream. Now, something I used to use OneNote quite a bit for was meeting notes. Meeting notes are quite powerful because I could integrate one of our meetings directly from the OneNote menu using meeting details and bring in one of our meetings. But can we do the same when it comes to Loop? Well, we can have very similar capability. So if we head into Microsoft Loop, let's assume you've got an impromptu meeting that's been added into your diary. What we can then do is click on the plus icon to the right hand side and once again open a new page. Now what we're going to consider is we could go and create a new page for some of our meeting notes. What we can do is we can use templates inside the Microsoft Loop. So at the bottom you see a number of templates and there's a whole template gallery with 24 templates today that you can utilize and bring straight into Loop. So here I'm going to select meeting notes and select use this template. And you can now see that we have a page dedicated for one of your meetings. So if you've been invited quickly into one of your meetings, you can use this template to use it very quickly and effectively for one of your meetings and add in the relevant content. We can go ahead and add a meeting topic, add meeting attendees into Loop tables and more, and give you that same capability. But also there are better options. In fact, what you can now do inside of Microsoft Teams when you schedule a new meeting directly from your Teams calendar is you can actually insert a Loop page that handles all of your meeting notes that we can later bring in to your Project Zeta workspace. So I'm going to go ahead, add a title and add some attendees into this meeting invitation, show you how it all works. So let's go and add this Loop capability. All we need to do is click on add an agenda others can edit, and we can now see we can add an agenda, meeting notes and follow-up tasks, and even better, follow-up tasks integrated into Microsoft To Do and Planner. So with that done, we can go ahead and now click on the send button to send this across to my colleague Nestor, who can join the meeting and also have access to that information when the meeting starts. So to do that, all we need to do is go ahead and open up the Teams meeting. On the right hand side, we can now see meeting notes have appeared, including the agenda, driven as a checklist. As agenda is completed, we can check off the options. And then as we go, we can begin to add in our meeting notes. It'll all be synchronized back into Loop when the meeting finishes. But here's where some of the Loop capability really stands out. All we then need to do is go to the recent tab within Loop. We can see Project Zeta catch up, and when we open that, we can see the agenda we checked off, the meeting notes and follow-up tasks. And all we then need to do to bring a copy into my own area I'm working within Project Zeta, click Add to Workspace, select Project Zeta, and at which point it'll then be moved across and I have quick access into the Project Zeta workspace. Now we can see Project Zeta's catch-up has been added into this workspace, much like we would do inside of a OneNote section, a OneNote page dedicated to those meeting notes. There's two simple ways there to bring in meeting notes directly into one of your Loop workspaces and to use it to pick up some of those additional notes. But much like OneNote, we're going to want to be able to share files and have quick access to them in my notes area. How can I do that very effectively? Well, what we can do is add in a link to one of our files. Once again, we're going to click on the plus icon under Project Zeta, this time selecting New Link. And what I've also done is I've actually created a sharing link to one of our PowerPoint files already in Microsoft 365. So I can simply paste in the address and add in a text to display. With that done, we're going to go ahead and select Add. And as you can see on the left, Loop is aware it's a PowerPoint file, and that link means it's going to stay in place to where the content was found. Left clicking into it therefore opens it within PowerPoint Online, so I can actually make changes to it straight in PowerPoint, but it syncs back into that location. But that does mean that my Loop workspace can act as a way to share content and have quick access to it through my own notes inside of one of my dedicated workspaces. So super easy to get back to some of the files you need to work with quickly without needing to go anywhere near any other app. And let's not forget, sometimes you're going to be on the move. You need to be able to create notes on an app on your mobile, such as an iPad or an iPhone, and be able to use those in one of your Loop pages, much like you do today in OneNote. Well, the Microsoft Loop app is now available on the relevant stores, and here I have it inside of my own iPad. What I can easily do is access that exact workspace and pages I'm working with in Loop. And I can use ink to text, so I can actually write content on this page and it automatically gets converted into text, and I can pick it up later in the Loop app and share it with others. So if I'm in that important meeting, need to take notes really easily, you can do that on your mobile device and get it all synced inside a Microsoft Loop for later. And of course, one of the major points of Loop is the ability to share it across multiple Microsoft 365 apps. And let's not forget that in OneNote, we typically want to share content with others. And in OneNote, I may want to email the page. And when I bring it into Outlook, it doesn't create a synced copy. Instead, as we can see, it creates the content here and inserts it, which is obviously no issue. But the flip side of that is, in Loop, we can take content how it's synchronized across many different apps. So let's go back into the Loop app, and I need to get feedback on my project objective. Is this correct with the team? But I don't want to provide access to all of my workspace for Project Zeta. What we can easily do is highlight that content and create it as a Loop component. It now has its own security model. So I very easily have created a component, and I can go across and click Copy Component. Now I could optionally click into the Settings button and change the security of that component to named individuals. But in this scenario, there's nothing here that's confidential, so I'm going to actually create it with company-wide security. With that done, I can then go into one of my apps of choice. For example, let's go and create ourselves a new message inside of Outlook and very simply paste in this component. Now what this will then allow is anyone who has access to this email will be able to see this component and make changes to it in real time. They'll sync back not only to the copy I sent in Outlook, but to the original location inside the Microsoft Loop. And what this allows is that synchronization across apps. It then means that these changes are synced straight back into Microsoft Loop. But if you're not a fan of Outlook, well, we can take it into Teams. Let's go into a chat message. And here we can share it with my BD team. They might have an interest in the project, right? Again, I can paste it in. We can now see I can also change that again in Teams chat. Me or my colleagues can, and it syncs back in place. And a recent change in Microsoft Teams channels means we can paste in our Loop component and even share it there, meaning we can update that content in our Loop channel, sync it all back into that Loop workspace where it originally came from, that only I had access to originally. And finally, we need to consider that sometimes the workspace needs to be shared with others. It might be a case that a new project manager comes on board helping out with Project Zeta. In OneNote, it can be difficult then to share the content with that individual. But inside of our Loop workspace, we can provide access to all of this content quickly. All we then need to do is click up onto one workspace member, and I can now begin to add one of my colleagues. Let's assume now that Miriam is coming in as that new project manager. What I can then do is invite Miriam into Project Zeta, who will now have access to all of the pages inside of my Loop workspace for Project Zeta. And not only that, we can even share pages individually. It might be that Miriam is a new project manager, but equally, you want to go ahead and share the content ideas with another one of your colleagues, but not the whole workspace. Once again, we can go click on Share in the top right, and we can select Page Link. And in here we can define who needs to have access to this page. I don't want to give it company-wide access, but alongside myself and Miriam, I'm going to go ahead and share this with my colleague Nestor. Once I've done that, I can also define Nestor's security and rights to the page. Once I've then defined that, I can click Apply, and I can very simply copy and paste that into an email to provide access to Nestor and that page content for him to make changes without giving access to the whole workspace and all the other content. So as you can see, Loop's a great app to share content with your colleagues as your projects and notes flourish. So there we have it, Microsoft Loop providing capabilities that Microsoft OneNote can provide, but also going a step further in how you can share and collaborate more effectively between you and your team. And not forgetting that Microsoft Loop has even more capabilities that have been announced and coming soon in 2024. So we hope that now gives you another option in how you're going to consider taking notes in Microsoft 365 and ultimately save time and become more productive. And if this video has helped, we'd love it. Hit the like button, but even better, subscribe to this channel to become one of our community and also go on that journey of becoming a productivity superstar. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next one.